Hey everybody, welcome to Planning Your Retirement. This is a course that is designed to really help those who are near retirement or already in retirement make sure they have all the bases covered. So let me just start out with, of course, welcoming, and you think about words like growth mutual funds, ETFs, required minimum distributions, 401ks, IRAs, 4% rule, asset allocation, modern portfolio theory. These are all words that are financial jargon that often confuse and confound people. And so what we want to really do is go through some of the details to help people get a grip on these things, but we want people to be able to understand what retirement planning is all about. So often the focus is just on one or two things. This board behind me, we take a look up here, and as we talk about things in retirement, we're going to have options. We're going to have the ability to ignore some things, to manage some things, or maybe even insure some things. And everybody's going to have those same three choices. So as we go through this is going to be a journey. Understand this, that there's going to be a lot of information. It's going to be like drinking from a fire hose, right? There's going to be a lot of information. And we're also going to talk a lot about risk. We're going to talk about things that aren't always so fun and so nice to talk about. But we're going to talk about these because they have to be talked about. And they're not always being talked about. Listen, this course is for just a specific group of people. You might be near retirement, you might be in retirement, but you are very specific in the fact that you have done a very good job putting money away. You've put away lots of money, you've been very disciplined, you've really withheld yourself from a lot of the pleasures that maybe other people took advantage of, but you did that because you wanted to put yourself in a position where you're a little bit further ahead than other people. You're typically got great values, you're family oriented, small business owners, professionals, and even what I would call the millionaire next door. Not that they always have $1 million, but they have that same kind of mindset, very value driven. I'll tell you also who this course is not for. This is not for people who want to just come and get all the information they can and then do it themselves. Yep, those people are out there and there's lots of resources for you. We're just not that place. This also is not for people who are, well, how do I want to put it? They're just not nice people, okay? They might not be the nicest people, they might not be friendly, they might use people. We're not looking to help or work with people like that. We're looking for a good-hearted middle America who's done a great job and really wants some help. So let's go ahead and start helping. And right now, as you look behind me, something might be bothering you. My name, by the way, is Pete Cymbalak, and I'll be your instructor for this course. I've been in the financial industry for over 20 years, and I've traveled around the world teaching other advisors, internationally and nationally, the very things that we're going to talk about today. But it's enough about me because this is really about you. What do you want out of retirement? What is your dream board like? Who do you want to see? What do you want to do? What are your hobbies? Who's important to you? These are the kind of things that you need to think about ahead of time to make sure what we talk about is actually going to be reality. And again, now let me go back to this board. That is something bothering you? Is something there that you can't ignore? Yeah, that was missing an E, right? You couldn't ignore it. When we talk about retirement, we talk about things, there are going to be temptations to ignore things. But what we're going to learn through this course is we're going to learn about 5 different pillars. We call them pillars, you can call them puzzle pieces, you can call them buckets, you can call them whatever you'd like. But there are 5 different areas we're going to discover that are super specific that you have to cover or you do not have a retirement plan. You know, when you're in your car, right? And you're driving and you've got your rear view mirror on the side and you want to turn, you've got that turn signal on there. What happens if somebody's in your blind spot? It flashes at you, right? All of a sudden the indicator light goes off and that tells you somebody is there. You don't have that same opportunity when it comes to retirement. And so you have to cover those bases yourself. And when it comes to, you're going to have 3 different choices with the information you get throughout this course. You can insure yourself, you can manage risk, or you can ignore it, and ignore it to your own peril. because although we might talk about a few things here and there that are kind of lighthearted, the reality is your retirement going poorly because we ignored something can be devastating. So when we talk about retirement and we start going through the information, we get to those 5 pillars. By the way, there's a 6th pillar, and that's the person that helps you through it. The reality is I want you to understand that everything centers on this, and that is this, that there's what I'm going to call a risk wheel. Everything's about managing or challenging risk in various ways. So very quickly, this is a risk wheel, and we're going to have a few different things that we're going to talk about that are at risk to you in your retirement. And this is for everybody. When you think about risk, what's the first thing you think about when it comes to your retirement? Well, you have market risk, right? You have market risk, and that's really, when you think of the stock market, you're thinking about what we call systematic risk, okay? That's risk that's out there no matter what. You've got recessions, you've got politicians, you've got the economy that goes back and forth, you've got, well, quite frankly, we've had terrorist attacks, right? 9/11. We've even had pandemics. And these things are systematic risks that everybody faces. But in retirement, it's different, because now you need either some or all or a portion of that money, and you might need it now. Or you might be ready to need it in the next year or 2 or maybe even 5 years. You have to treat your money very differently. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of this risk during this course. We're going to talk about market risk. Can you think of some other risks? How about longevity? And you're thinking to yourself, well, Pete, why in the world would that be a risk to me, and why would I care? Well, people are living longer. Have you thought about that? And actually, people are actually retiring a little bit younger. So what happens if you live longer? Now, we just talked about systematic risk, right? When we look at this part of the risk, well, those markets crash or go down significantly every 7 to 8 years? So think about this. Your grandparents, right, they had a very simple retirement. Their retirement was often with just a CD or a money market. It was very simple. They often had a pension. They didn't have to take the risk in the market like you did. Your parents and grandparents had a very simple life. But today it's very complicated. And part of that complication comes because you're going to live longer than they did in retirement. On average, think about this for a moment. The average man, healthy, age 65, watching this today, they're going to live to an age around 84. And a woman is going to live to around age 89. That's your life expectancy. So that means you've got to make your money last longer. And that cycle, right, that 7 or 8 years, how many of those are going to happen? If you're retiring when you're 60, 65, and you're not passing away to your 85, 90, that's 20 to 25 years or more. How many of those cycles are going to go through? At least 3 or 4, maybe 5, depending on where you're at. So your money is going to go through that much more, okay? How about the death of a spouse? It's probably not a risk that you've thought about. Hopefully you haven't had to think about it in the past. But look, this is an enormous risk to you, because this is going to take income away when you probably need it most, towards the end of life. Just imagine for a moment that here you've had a good income. Let's just say you're making $100,000 a year, and all of a sudden you lose a spouse. You just lost the lower of 2 Social Securities. You may have lost all or some of a pension. And not only did your income drop by 10, 20, 30, 40%, but now your taxes went up because you just became a single person again, and they're in the highest tax brackets available. Is that what you meant to have happen? Of course not. So these are risks that we have to pay attention to. What kind of planning do we have to do to protect our spouse? What about interest rates? Are interest rates being low? Are they a problem? Well, you know, one of the advisors in the office and myself, Nick, we just went down to the local bank and we just picked up a CD for 5%. Pretty good, right? Of course, right? You want to know what bank it is. So do I. It's really 0.5%, right? I mean, it's next to nothing. Interest rates are very low. And that really hurts savers, doesn't it? It really puts you in a bad spot. It's great if you're borrowing money, but it's really bad if you're really trying to live on that in a safe manner. Not only that, but bonds are that low. Bonds are at lows that we haven't seen ever, right? I mean, historically, we're used to bonds being 4, 5, 6%, maybe even more. But the reality is today they're anywhere from 0% to about 2%, and that's it. That helps us with a problem, or it causes an additional problem, right? Because inflation is happening. The value of your money, if you were to take $10,000 from me, if you have an opportunity to take $10,000 from me today, or wait and take $10,000 a year from now, which would you choose? Well, you're going to take the $10,000 today because it's actually worth more than the $10,000 a year from now, because your money today is worth more because of inflation. So that money, $10,000 a year from now, is not going to be worth as much. Imagine what it was like back in 1980 if you made $100,000 a year. That was a lot of money. Is $100,000 a year a lot of money today? Not so much. Back in 1980, if you had $1 million, that was a lot of money. Today, you're now middle class with $1 million. So you got to think these things through, and it's because of inflation. And some of the things that are going to happen to us in retirement, inflation's going to hit us even harder. What about the elephant in the room, right? What about healthcare? What about healthcare? Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to deal with this. But according to statistics, T. Rowe Price just came out with a report that says on average, a couple age 65 today, if they're healthy, they're going to spend about $400,000 in retirement on healthcare costs alone. So we're going to have to deal with that because that's an enormous risk to your portfolio. What about taxes? Well, Pete, I don't think taxes are such a big deal because when we get to retirement, we're going to spend less money, thereby our taxes are going to be lower. Well, let me ask you this. How many of you actually want to voluntarily lower your standard of living as you go into retirement? Yeah, I don't see anybody raising their hands. And it's not because I can't see you, it's because there are no hands raised. Why? Because people want to maintain that standard of living. And if that's the case, then you're going to pay more in taxes than what you think. And oh, by the way, have we been going through a crisis? You realize that the government spent $6 trillion on this crisis alone? Who's going to pay for that? Do you realize that taxes have been at an all-time high? No, they've been at an all-time low. Lowest taxes in the last 100 years. Are you taking advantage of this? Because this is a risk that if you've been doing what everybody else has been doing, which is putting our money in a 401k or an IRA, then you have a tax infestation waiting to happen. These are the kind of things as we go around this risk wheel that you have to cover. This is just the risk that you have to manage. And so we've broken this down, and on your screen now, you see these 5 pillars. You see investment planning, you see tax planning, you see income planning. I'm going a little out of order because I can't look at my own screen. We're talking about healthcare planning, and don't forget about legacy planning. And then you need a coach to help you through that because this is overwhelming. This is complicated. So folks, as we go through this course, buckle up, enjoy, take notes. This is going to be a lot of fun and a lot of information. And it will change your life if you just apply and practice the rules. I look forward to going through this course together. Buckle up, let's go.